Let's welcome in our powerhouse panel and get some reaction. Joining Allison and I this morning is Project 21 National Advisory Board member and radio host Christopher Arps and former Deputy Press Secretary under President Trump and Newsmax contributor Hogan Gidley. Hogan, I'm curious, the president, this is not just on Joe Biden, of course. We've got an ocean separating us from Ukraine, but all of these NATO countries that have been relying on Russia for energy for the better part of a generation, particularly Germany, but France does as well. France still doing a lot of business with Russia while this all goes on. The Russian stock market scheduled to open today for the first time in 18 days. Pretty unbelievable. These countries, they need to speak up as well. Their voices need to be heard. Today, I think it's red lines. That's what I know I'm looking for. If Vladimir Putin does decide to use chemical weapons, what do? We need to tell him exactly what we're going to do. Heaven forbid it comes to nuclear weapons or tactical nuclear weapons. There need to be red lines for this guy. Otherwise, this is just going to go on and on, unabated, with no end in sight.
So much of this to this point has been one of those scenarios in which we would consistently say we're so concerned about what Russia is going to do next. What needs to be the question from Russia is, what is the United States going to do next? What is NATO going to do next? That should be their main focus and their main concern. And to this point, we've allowed Russia to move at will through Ukraine. Thankfully, the Ukrainians have stepped up. Their army has done more than anyone thought possible and has really put Vladimir Putin in a serious box. That's why the concern of nuclear weapon usage, that's why the concern of chemical weapon usage is something that needs to be addressed today in the various speeches, is because Vladimir Putin is stuck now. He's already invaded. There are no signs of concessions from the Ukrainians. In fact, some people are predicting Ukraine could win the war. So when Vladimir Putin is cornered, we've seen it in the past, that's when serious human rights abuses occur. Not that they haven't been already, with shelling of civilians and maternity wards and killing of children, et cetera. But chemical weapons are definitely on the table with Vladimir Putin if history is any guide. So what is the world going to do? I imagine they're going to have a serious conversation. The speeches, though, are going to be important. What I'm waiting for is the press conference, because that's when the American press will absolutely put the screws to Joe Biden and say, you need to tell us more about your plan. That is going to be more telling to me than the canned speeches today.
Yeah, we've got Alex Salvi there outside NATO headquarters. Chris, this is, again, that's what I'm looking for as well. President Biden's going to make a speech. He'll get through the speech. We'll hear from other world leaders. But then there will be a press conference this afternoon, right around 3 o'clock our time. And that's when the rubber's going to meet the road. And is President Biden up to the task today? Is this going to be just another one of these where we build it up expecting something great from the president and it's totally anticlimactic in the end?
Well, I hope he is up to the task today. I hope they've given him plenty of rest so that when he's giving his speech, he can read the teleprompter without.
Chris, can I interrupt you for 1 second? I apologize.
Sure.
Just on that note about plenty of rest, this yesterday I read, and this is very unusual, Hogan, you can speak to this, but he flew out of Washington yesterday, Joint Base Andrews, right around 9 o'clock Eastern. Normally that's not the case, but they want to keep this almost 80-year-old man on a normal sleep-wake cycle. So they wanted him to get there with plenty of time to, in the afternoon, go to bed and try to get a normal night's sleep because of the importance of today and tomorrow he'll be in Poland. Sorry, go ahead, Chris.
Oh, yeah, and that's the reason why when you see the president's daily schedule, there's 1, 2, maybe 3 events on that schedule. I hope that he is strong and he's forceful in his talk, and I hope that he stops looking like he's capitulating to Vladimir Putin and tell him there are some red lines, and say that if it gets to the point the United States will enforce a no-fly zone over Ukraine if you use chemical or biological weapons. I think we're at the stage in this conflict that the president has to say that very clearly.
That's a good point. President Zelensky was, I'm sorry, Hogan, go ahead.
I was going to say, I love the media trying to say that Joe Biden needs to be on his sleep-wake schedule. Donald Trump was on a wake-wake schedule. He never slept. 18 hours over to Asia, we would have conversations on the plane at all hours of the night on those trips. He would read voraciously and ask questions. Look, I think the red line speech would be important, especially setting those. The real question is, does anyone around the globe believe that Joe Biden will come through and enforce any red line he puts forward? If he actually incorporates NATO in those conversations, then potentially he's going to have some cover because other countries will have to step up. But I do want it very clearly noted here. While Zelensky is going to address the UN today, he's addressed many countries around the world. Remember, during impeachment, between a phone call between Donald Trump and Zelensky. Zelensky came forward and said there was no quid pro quo for weaponry. The left and the media said this guy was a liar, said he was corrupt. He was leading a corrupt country. He was absolutely not telling the truth. Now, all of a sudden, he's the paragon of virtue, and he leads everything that is good, decent, and right in the world. The juxtaposition there is quite confusing, if you ask me, and I would say a little bit fishy.
Hogan, so that's, and don't forget, Tommy, we all know Donald Trump was impeached for that perfect phone call. You're right. President Zelensky is the man of the moment. He's certainly risen to the occasion over the last 29 days for his people and the people of Ukraine. Ukraine's not a NATO country. It was nowhere near being a NATO country.
Right.
It's not going to be a NATO country after this war ends, hopefully sooner rather than later. But this is a country that's incredibly corrupt, and nobody knows that better than the big guy, Joe Biden himself, who was getting kickbacks from his son, Hunter, who was on the board of an energy company called Burisma, which was headquartered in Kyiv. My goodness, nobody talks about that.
Well, now that laptop exists, according to the New York Times.
And look, I'll tell you, of course,
real.
the New York Times is able to verify that.
Yeah.
Thank you so much, New York Times. Look at President Zelensky. He, again, there will be time to criticize the Ukrainian president. It's tough to do it now just because his people are being slaughtered by this monster to the east in Moscow. But President Zelensky late last night addressed the people of Ukraine because today marks 1 month since this invasion began. Take a look.
The war of Russia is not only the war against Ukraine. Its meaning is much wider. Russia started the war against freedom as it is. This is only the beginning for Russia on the Ukrainian land. Russia is trying to defeat the freedom of all people in Europe, of all the people in the world. It tries to show that only crude and cruel force matters.
Allison, he did that in English deliberately. So Ukraine is a country that's about 30 years old. He's the 6th president of Ukraine. So if they make it through this, he's going to be looked at least through the lens of history, as a founding father.
He will. He knows how to speak to the audience. He's on Instagram. He's constantly speaking. He spoke to many parliaments. He knows how to get his message across, and it's not a canned speech. Obviously, he's at war. Something I did want to bring up, I know we have to go, is we need to also think about China today in this meeting, because they are looking and seeing what's happening in Russia, because we know how close they are with Putin. So what are they going to do? They don't want their economy to be impacted like Russia's economy is, but we as NATO have to figure out how do we deter China, because they are a big player in this and they're a major concern.
Huge national security implications. President Xi in China will be watching. Ukraine's largest trade partner, by the way, is China. So this is not only affecting, obviously, the Ukrainian economy and the people of Ukraine, but there are implications for China as well in President Xi and how he will react to what NATO does today. Panel, appreciate it this morning. Good stuff as always. Hogan Gidley, good to see you. Chris Arps, have a good weekend. Thank you.